In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, Assalamu alaikum, and greetings of peace to all of our viewers today. Thank you for joining our webinar. I'd like to introduce you to your moderator, Nazneen Nathani Mirza, who will be going over our presentation and webinar today. Nazneen, please take it over.
Thank you so much, Brother Mehdi. In the name of God and with greetings of peace, hello. My name is Nazneen Nathani Mirza, and I'd like to thank Shia Muslim Council for inviting me to be your moderator today for the Inspiring Women of Faith event. I am a longtime resident of Southern California, a program and project manager at Accenture, but most importantly, a daughter, a wife, and a mother to two not so little boys. This webinar is brought to you by Shia Muslim Council and Muslims for Peace. And before we begin, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about them. Shia Muslim Council of Southern California is a community platform to facilitate the exchange of ideas and experiences to enhance and support religious, social, humanitarian, and educational development activities, such as today's webinar. SMC actively cooperates with like-minded organizations to advance unity amongst Muslims and understanding the interfaith community through civic, social justice, and educational programs. And MuslimsForPeace.org was established in 2001 and is an organization that aims to bridge people from different religious and ethnic backgrounds through interfaith activities such as presentations, seminars, and discussions. The founders strongly believe that educating each other about our differences is the best way to interconnect people, increase tolerance towards each other, and facilitate the peacemaking process throughout the world. Muslims for Peace spreads the message that Islam stands for nonviolence and works towards developing a better understanding of Islam among all people of the world, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. So thank you to both of these organizations for establishing this event and inviting us to participate in it. So why are we here today? Let me tell you a little bit more about it. We are here as an interfaith activity to recognize the influential women of three Abrahamic faiths that inspire us. Given the state of affairs in the world today, I think we could all use a little bit of hope, inspiration, and maybe some warm and fuzzy feelings. 2020 hasn't been such an easy year for most of us, and 2021's got some bumps along the road as well. So to help us counter this and strengthen our hope and our optimism and just, feel a little bit better about what's going on, we have three inspiring women themselves representing the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And they are going to tell us about women from their faiths that inspire them. Now, before I introduce them and then hand it over to these speakers, I'd also like to mention that we will be taking live question and answers. So if you can go to www.slido.com and you can enter the hashtag inspiring, you'll be able to enter your questions live. Thank you. So it's www.slido.com #inspiring. So if it comes up during one of our speakers or at the end, we'll have a segment for that. Please go ahead and enter your questions that way. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce these three lovely ladies. I'll begin with Rabbi Heidi Cohen. Rabbi Heidi Cohen of Ha Nefesh is described as being inspirational, engaging, and uplifting. She cares about Judaism and creating opportunities for all to do Jewish. Rabbi Heidi has served the Orange County Jewish community for 22 years, bringing her own unique style to all life cycle and worship events, as well as engaging those who are curious to learn and experiment with Jewish living. She engages people of all ages and backgrounds with love and compassion and encourages each person to be the best soul that they can be. I love that. She brings Judaism to life through song, story, and boundless energy. Representing Christianity, we will have Reverend Sisa Payuyo. She is an ordained minister with the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and she also serves as a campus chaplain at Chapman University in Orange, California, where she has been serving since 2003. Reverend Sisa is Chapman's Associate Director of Church Relations and co-facilitator to the school's Interfaith Council. Her passion lies in helping people nurture their spiritual gifts. And sister, and last but not least, we have Sister Sakina Dada. She is a pediatric occupational therapist and a PhD candidate in critical disability studies in the School of Health Policy and Management at York University. She is the founder and executive director of Smile Canada Support Services, a registered Canadian charity that supports children and youth with disabilities and their families. Sakina currently resides in Toronto, Canada, with her husband and 2 kids. These women will be telling you about the women from their faith. Rabbi Heidi will be telling us about Miriam, the sister of Moses. Reverend Sisa will be telling us about Mary, the mother of Christ. And Sakina will be telling us about Lady Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad. So without further ado, I'd first like to welcome Rabbi Heidi.
Thank you so very much, Nazneen, and all of you. It is so wonderful to be here with you on this wonderful, beautiful afternoon. So, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is that you are. It is truly a blessing for us to join together in this wonderful program and an opportunity for us to be able to share our own traditions and inspiring women of faith and looking forward to strengthening the bridges of our faiths and of our communities. So, let me tell you about Miriam. Now, she is known as one of the 7 female prophets of Israel. She is the daughter of Amram and Yocheved, and she is the older sister to Aaron and Moses, 3 years older than Aaron and 7 years older than Moses. Now, there are different meanings to her name. One is that her name means bitter water. Where does this come from? Well, it comes from the idea that the bitter water is that she was born during the bitterness that began at the time of the Hebrews' enslavement in Egypt. But the connection to water is so significant. Her name can also mean rebellion, in that she was a rebel. She was a rebel with the midwives regarding the Pharaoh's decree to, well, I'll discuss that one in a moment. And also, her name means to elevate. For it is said that it comes from her that the house of David will be elevated in generations to come. So, a very complex woman just within her name itself. So, where do we get to know Miriam first? We know her from Torah. Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Jewish Bible, it includes Torah, it includes the book of prophets, and it includes the book of writings, along with almost 3,000 years worth of text and learning that continues, by the way, to not only be written, but to be commented on, to be pored over, to be discussed, and even challenged. So we first encounter Miriam without her name. We don't know her name, but she is among the strong women in the beginning of Exodus. Pharaoh has enslaved the Hebrews who are living in the land of Goshen. They've been there since the time of Jacob, but they have grown too numerous for the Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. Joseph, who helped the Egyptians at the time of the great famine and helped strengthen Egypt. However, this new Pharaoh, he didn't know them. And he is concerned by how many Hebrews there are that he enslaves them, forcing them to build his cities. Pharaoh also tries to control the population by insisting that the midwives drown any Hebrew male child who is born. However, women are strong, especially the midwives, Shifra and Puah, who refuse to tell the Pharaoh that the Hebrew women are delivering babies, that they're delivering babies before they're able to even arrive, that's how strong they are. This is where we meet Miriam. She is known as the sister of a male baby whose mother puts him into a basket and sends him out on the river Nile. Miriam is told to follow the basket, see what will become of this child. The baby is drawn out of the water, out of the river by the Pharaoh's daughter, who she gives to him the name Moses, Moshe, meaning in Egyptian to draw out of the water. Miriam approaches the Pharaoh's daughter and asks if she could go and find a woman who will nurse the child for her. Moses is sent home with Miriam. He is sent home back to his own mother to be nursed until he is weaned and then brought back to the palace. So that's our first instance of meeting a very strong and determined young girl, a young Miriam. We next meet Miriam at the shores of the Sea of Reeds. After the Israelites are released and they leave Egypt, they come to the Sea of Reeds. Before them is the Great Sea, and coming up quickly behind them is Pharaoh and his army. He obviously changed his mind in letting the Israelites go, and he wants to bring them back because he's now just lost all of his free labor. In this week's Torah portion that we're just finishing reading right now, it's called Bishalach, and within it is what's called Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea. It is the account of God parting the waters so that the Israelites can cross over on dry land to safety. It is on the other side of the sea that Moses first sings a song to God, and then Miriam is identified as a prophetess, and she leads the women with timbrel in her hand, dancing and singing to God as well. Miriam gives the Israelite women their voice to sing out, to celebrate separately. What's interesting is that this time of the Israelites passing through the sea, which then closes in and drowns Pharaoh and his army, it echoes and reverses the decree that Pharaoh had placed on the Israelites to drown their children in the sea. It was the women, including Miriam, who saved the children before, and it is now the women led by Miriam who will celebrate the Israelites' freedom from slavery. Miriam's connection to water continues through the journey in the desert. It is said that wherever the Israelites are in the desert with Miriam, there is a well that will provide water for them all. However, Miriam is challenged as well, in that she is not given the same status as Moses, in that she is not able to speak face to face with God. Even though she has been elevated as a prophetess, it is only Moses. Moses is the only one who has that close relationship with God. And when she complains about this, God is definitely not amused. She is struck with leprosy. Someone who is struck with leprosy there in the desert is forced to leave the camp until it clears. The people, however, insist that they will not move. They will not leave until Miriam is cleared of her leprosy, and they will not leave her behind. Moses and Aaron plead to God, El Narafanala, God, please heal her. And 7 days later, she is permitted to return to the camp, and the people are able to then move forward. Miriam later dies in the wilderness in Kadesh. She and her siblings, Moses and Aaron, will not see the promised land. But her role in moving the people forward out of slavery and into freedom is significant and inspirational. Today, we sing songs of Miriam, taking her timbrel in her hands and crossing the sea of reeds, especially the beautiful song composed by Debbie Friedman of blessed memory. It is woven into our liturgy at the time in which we remember our redemption from slavery. And today we place a cup of water on our Seder tables at the time of Passover to remind us all that Miriam, what she did for the Israelites in freeing them and providing water, life's greatest gift and necessity. A woman who is touched with spirit, a woman who stood up against all odds, and a woman who inspired others to march to freedom and sing praises. Miriam was truly an inspirational woman of faith.
Thank you, Rabbi Heidi. That was indeed inspirational. Let me introduce next Reverend Sisa to tell us about Mary, the Mother of Christ.
Thank you, Nazneen, and thank you, Shia Muslim Council and Muslims for Peace, for the invitation to talk with you all today. It is such a blessing and honor. Thank you. I will share my thoughts with you on Mary, the mother of Jesus, whose story is found in the New Testament and who has a whole chapter devoted to her in the Quran. Mary was a young maiden, a virgin. And I learned that the early meaning of virgin does not completely center around her physical body attributes, but that virgin originally meant whole unto herself, not belonging to a man. So I resonate with that phrase, whole unto herself. There is a sense of soundness, a sense of groundedness, and confident in who she is and in her trust and faith in God. The nativity story starts with Mary being visited by the angel Gabriel, who announces to her that she will carry in her womb the child of God. Gabriel tells her that her older cousin Elizabeth is also pregnant, as nothing is impossible with God. Mary responds by saying, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." The angel departs and Mary decides to visit Elizabeth. Mary greets Elizabeth, and the baby that's growing inside Elizabeth leaps for joy at the sound of Mary's voice. As they greet each other, Elizabeth says to Mary, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." Mary is so taken with Elizabeth's exuberance that she responds with what is called Mary's Song of Praise, or Mary's Magnificat. And I read, and Mary says, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy and according to the promise he has made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever." Mary's song celebrates the coming liberation of her people. Mary is a simple, ordinary woman with whom ordinary women can identify in many aspects of their lives. When I hear the phrase, "Blessed are you among women," it not only becomes Elizabeth speaking to Mary, it becomes God saying it to me. It becomes a blessing that I can say, that we can say as women to each other. I have been fascinated by Mary. I grew up in a bi-religious Filipino household that was part Catholic and part Protestant. And I prayed the rosary with my mother and went to both Catholic and Protestant churches with both my parents. While I was in seminary, I searched for the Filipino voices in my readings. Many of the theologians were white European men. I had to take some time to search as there was a struggle within me. How do I justify my Christianity as a Filipina, knowing my people were colonized and forced to give up their own spiritual practices? I was able to do some searching and found that when I stripped Jesus away from the dogma that Christianity has created, what Jesus taught lines up with ancient Filipino values, such as offering deep hospitality to one another, loving one another, and serving one another. This helped me immensely as I continued my seminary studies. I started to look for images of a Filipino Mary or images of the Madonna and Child. While Mary and the Holy Family are often depicted as porcelain-skinned people with light brown or blonde hair, the truth of the matter is there are no white people in the Bible. Jesus was a Jew from Palestine. In searching through the internet, I found many paintings of Mary and Jesus or the Madonna and Child done by Filipino artists from all over the world. In a moment, I invite you to take about a 2-minute art walk with me, where we will gaze at these art pieces. What do you see? What resonates with you? And what doesn't resonate with you? Mehdi, if you'll take us there. Thank you, Mehdi. The Philippines is largely a Catholic country, and many, many Filipinos have a strong affinity towards Mary. They pray to her as they pray to God, and in hopes that Mary will have the ear of God. While some paintings celebrate Mother Mary, feminist scholars like Claudette May-Tautin argues that in the Philippines, the image of the Virgin has served as a symbol of patriarchal control of the woman's body, whereby women are put in their place as mother and virgin. Tautin, 2009. At the same time, there are empowering elements of Mary. Sister Mary John Manansan, a Filipino Catholic activist, said, as I quote, "Feminist theologians have reinterpreted the role of Mary. They take Mary as an example of a strong woman and mother who can be a model of modern Filipino women in courage and service of people." Manansan, 2012. Mary was blessed amongst women. We too are blessed amongst women and can be a blessing to those all around us. So may we be a blessing to all. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sisa. And last but not least, Sakina, please tell us about Lady Fatima.
Thank you, Nazneen. In the name of God, the most beneficent and the most merciful, peace and blessings to all of you who are tuning in. It's such an honor for me to be here today on such an esteemed panel. I've learned so much from both of you, Rabbi Heidi and Reverend Sisa. Today, I'm going to share a bit of who Fatima Zahra, peace and blessings upon her, was. I could spend days doing this, as we could with all of these personalities, but I will keep it brief. Fatima was the daughter of Khadija, the noble, strong, successful businesswoman, and Prophet Muhammad, the final prophet and messenger in Islam. May peace and blessings be upon him and his family. She was the wife, partner of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and her marriage and partnership was so beautiful that in Islamic tradition, when we recite the nikah, the religious ceremony of two people in marriage, we say the following: "O God, bless the union of the couple like the union of Fatima and Ali." She was the mother of Hassan and Hussein, righteous leaders in Islam, and Kulthum and Zainab, righteous, strong, courageous women. Her followers will often recite the tradition of the cloak, known as Hadith-e-Kisa, where it is narrated that Prophet Muhammad gathered Fatima and Ali and Hassan and Hussein under a cloak. And in this tradition, we see how Fatima as a woman is the link between Prophet Muhammad and the prophets that came before him, and Imam Ali, Hassan, and Hussein, who continued to share his teachings and lead. When we think of her personality, we see how she was exemplified in her various identities: as a woman, a daughter, a wife, a mother, a role model. And amongst the many, many titles given to her, she was known as Sadiqa, the one who always spoke the truth; as Adila, the one who is just; and as Amila, one who is active, who works hard, who gets the job done. A trait that I think many of us can relate to and aspire. In her short life, she acquired scientific, cultural, and literary knowledge. And throughout her short lifespan, she was always a teacher as well as a lifelong student. The love she had for her family, her parents, her children, her spouse, her community, and for complete strangers is exemplary. The love that others had for her provides a glimpse into her character. Fatima was so loved by her father, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, that he used to often say with pride, "She is from me, she is from me," to the point where she was known as Umme Abiha, which means the mother of her father. Not only because she took care of him, but because she had wisdom that he would turn to. It is narrated that when she would walk into a room, he would always smile a big smile, stand up, and give up his seat to her. Some of us have probably heard a stereotype that in Islam, women are oppressed and girls are not held in high esteem. When in fact, we know that in Islam, through the Quran and prophetic tradition, the Prophet spoke against this practice of not wanting girls. In fact, he made his love for his daughter known to everyone. Companions used to come to him and say, "O Prophet of God, who do you love?" And they would point to each other. And it is recorded that he would respond, "I love Fatima, I love Fatima." She lived in a time of struggles and persecution. And one thing that always comes to mind when mentioning her name is that she protested against injustice. She stood for the truth. She stood to protect the rights of her father, herself, her husband, those who were silenced, and she always made her voice heard. And she raised children who stood up against injustice and oppression of all forms. Fatima was not just a leader for women, she was a leader for all persons. In a time where it was not common, she made a sermon in the masjid, in the mosque, to all people. And amongst the many things she shared, she talked about human rights and social justice. Today, with our very, very busy and hectic lives, with the numerous crises across the world, with global humanitarian issues, family, community, love for neighbors, and love for complete strangers is so important to keep our faith and our resilience. Standing up for injustices in all forms all around the world, standing up for our own rights, as well as the rights of others, is something we can learn from a woman who lived over 1,400 years ago. The personalities that we've spoken of today are central to our teachings and our histories. They are inspiring and they are hope. Hope that we can unite on common ground to do good, be the best versions of ourselves, as best as we can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Sakina. Thank you, Reverend Sisa, and thank you, Rabbi Heidi. We've come to the point in the program where we can open it up for questions and answers, and I will be monitoring the questions that come in. So please go ahead and go to www.slido.com, and the hashtag is inspiring, and we will take as many of the questions that we can. While we wait for some of those to come in, I have a couple of questions of my own that, as you were all speaking, just popped into my head, and we'll try not to make this my one-on-one question and answer session. But, you know, as we are going through these stories, Rabbi Heidi, I was struck by the relationship that Miriam had with Moses and just the challenges that she faced, and how she almost seemed like a feminist way ahead of her time. But given her experiences, what can the men in our lives do to support, whether it's, you know, the husbands, the brothers, the fathers, but also for those of us raising little boys, what can we do to instill the support that we need from them? Oh, I believe you're still on mute.
Sorry about that.
Perfect.
What a beautiful question. Thank you, Nazneen. So when we think about Miriam and how the men in our lives and the boys in our lives can support the women, Miriam was the first one to have the woman's voice rise up in song, rise up in prayer and praise and gratitude. And so I think one of the beautiful ways that we all can support each other is by allowing our voices to come forward, to not silencing another's voice, but rather listening, appreciating, respecting, honoring each other's voices. So I think that is a great lesson that we learned from Miriam, because she brought those women together. And it is that one time that we hear them separate, not as one whole unit, but rather the women's voices coming together separately, and they were never silenced. And that's so important, that nobody's voices should ever be silenced.
And that's beautiful. And it's such an important message, not just for women, but for everything that's going on around us. Sakina, you alluded to, the social justice challenges that we have in the world. Reverend Cisa, something that struck me from your presentation was just the vulnerability, right? And when I was looking through that artwork, it almost seems like, and you mentioned it in terms of the feminist interpretation and then the reinterpretation, that it seems like female strength is in vulnerability, because it takes strength to be that vulnerable. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, or if you've seen any research that kind of relates to that. Like, how do you have the strength to be vulnerable?
I think it reminds me of the passage at the Mount of Olives in the Beatitudes, where Jesus says, "Blessed are the weak, for they will be made strong." It doesn't mean, weak physically. It doesn't mean that that you kowtow to everything, but you remain humble. That your strength comes from God, but you remain humble and kind, even though things are thrown at you that, sometimes you want to react, in not a good way. But if we remember to take a breath and remember to say, no, I'm going to reciprocate with kindness. It's not always easy, but there is strength in reciprocating with kindness. There is strength in reciprocating with love and deep hospitality. So I think, weakness does not mean weak, but it means humbleness.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it actually, it feels like I teed this up. It transitions so well into the question that I have for Sister Sakina, because when I was listening to you, how does one get the strength to carry on, right? When faced with burdens that sometimes can just feel so heavy, right? And each of the figures that we have heard about go through just, challenges that us normal human beings couldn't even dream of. What should we tap into? What did they tap into to help us carry on?
I was actually thinking about that, Nazneen, as I was preparing for this presentation, because, the struggles of the Prophet Muhammad and his family are well known. And, there was a lot of injustice, a lot of oppression. And, today we see that all around the world. But for me, I think that love piece is so strong. And, I mentioned a bit about the love that her father had for her, the love that her partner had with her, the love that she had for others. And I think, just coming together on platforms such as this one, coming together, whether we can meet in person or not, right now it's difficult to do so, but checking in on each other, sharing that love. And I think that piece, at least for me, it helps get through the days. You started off by saying, 2020 and 2021 even is difficult. And I think, we acknowledge that it is difficult, but that together we can get through it, and we can turn to these personalities for strength and for love.
Absolutely. I could ask 101 more questions, but I am going to, there's so much to unpack here. But let me turn to some of the questions that are coming in from our audience. So the first one we have is for Reverend Sisa. And the question is, often Mary, Mother of Jesus, is also called Fatima, the same name as Prophet Muhammad, or the daughter of Prophet Muhammad. Is there a connection here? And if so, do you know what that is?
I apologize. I was not aware of that. Yeah, and no, I'm really sorry. I can't answer that question.
Yeah, no problem.
But just hearing our stories together, these are definitely very amazing women, and they're all connected by strength,
Mhm.
definitely, and they're all connected by the deepness of their faith.
Absolutely. The next question we have is for Sister Sakina. We learn about Mary and Asiya, the Pharaoh's wife, in Islamic teachings. Are you able to comment on who Miriam is from an Islamic point of view?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so we know that Maryam is the daughter of Imran, and she in Islam we actually Lady Maryam is Lady Mary, and I believe it was Rabbi Heidi or maybe Reverend Sisa. Sorry, I apologize, but in the Quran we have a whole chapter dedicated to her because her status in Islam was one that was so high and so esteemed, and we have learned so many of her teachings, and so we have a lot of similarities, actually, the way we see Maryam, the same way in Islam, the same way we see Lady Mary in Christianity.
Perfect. Thank you. So here's a lovely question that I'd really like to pose to all of you, that, in our scriptures, we have so much in common, much more in common than we have differences. What can we do differently to bring us together rather than divide us? What are your thoughts? Rabbi Heidi, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's we have these beautiful scriptures. We have these beautiful writings. And I think the first thing that we can do is exactly what we're doing right here. The opportunity to study together, the opportunity to learn from one another, to unpack all of the different meanings. We may not have the same faiths, we may not practice the same way, but if you really dig down, if you really go to the foundation of who we are, our goal is to have a world that is whole, that is complete, that is filled with healing, that is one that loves and respects all people. How do we achieve that? By doing things just like this, by coming together and speaking with one another and learning and growing and asking questions and not being afraid of those questions. It really is a way of our building those bridges and making them even stronger.
Reverend Sisa, what about you?
I was talking about in my talk, I talked about Philippine values, and one of them is the word kapwa, Kapwa, and it's basically the golden rule. Maybe one step further, it's love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. And so, definitely I agree with Rabbi Heidi that having forums like this, having times like this is one way. Reaching out, reaching out to even people you don't completely know within faith communities, and introducing yourself, like, hello, I I would really like to get to know you better, and get to know your faith community better. How can we do that? And create forums like this that we can do that. Definitely.
Absolutely. And Sakina, how about you?
I mean, I couldn't agree more that talking with each other, sharing with each other, and looking back on our histories and these personalities, like the ones that we've been talking about today, what we share about them is not only who they were, but what they gave to all people. And so, we can take from one another and implement those teachings and share those stories with our children and our families. And only good can come of that.
Absolutely. This type of dialogue, conversation, and being candid with each other, I think, can definitely go a long way for us all to learn from one another and learn that we're really not so different after all. Okay, one of the questions that also came in, and I'll kind of add to this a little bit, is that many scriptures speak to the subservience of women to men, and how do we balance that with asserting our rights as well? And I'll tack on to that, because Reverend Sisa, I feel like I'm going to write this down and pin it somewhere where you said, like, the definition of the word virgin being whole unto herself and not belonging to a man. Like, I really need to tape that up somewhere. I love it so much. And just, we have such examples of powerful women beyond their times. And yet, and the other thing that you mentioned, I feel that ties into this, Reverend Sisa, was just separating culture and faith, right? And I think that all of us have faced those challenges within our faiths and our institutions, right? That, like you mentioned, that Christianity was brought to them by white men, who were colonizing them. But how do you separate the goodness of the faith from maybe the tainted parts of the culture? So I would really turn, that question and unpacking whatever angle of that to all of you. Anybody want to start?
Well, let me try. You have heard, the three different women and their strength. And we don't share those stories often. Maybe we only hear it within our own synagogue or within our own temple or within our own church, but out in the world, you don't hear those stories of strength as much. And I feel oftentimes the colonizer would take scripture and says, this is what it means. No, you're supposed to be subservient. You're supposed to. But there's also examples of where women were leaders. And we forget about that, and Jesus surrounded himself with women leaders. He admired them. He respected them. And so it all depends on the way that we read and interpret the scripture, and the way that we go forward and teach.
I want to tack on to that, Reverend Sisa, because you're absolutely right. It's not that the scripture, at least I speaking from, the Jewish, tradition, as far as it doesn't say anywhere that a woman cannot do this. Okay, there's nothing there that prohibits her. It's it's the interpretation. It's what we end up doing with that text. So when it says that a man is commanded to do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't say a woman is not allowed to do those things. And I think that that's where we get some of those divisions, where we get some of the gender differences. is this concept of, oh, well, she wasn't directly commanded to do that. Part of it too comes from um, our roles historically, right? The time of when we were only homemade, I shouldn't say so, excuse me. Ooh. That could be bad. Where we where women were the homemakers, and so therefore their responsibility was within the home, caring for the children and caring, for everything that has to go within the house, that to do something at a particular time, because in Judaism we have time-bound commandments and non-time-bound commandments. And part of the tradition, some would say, is that a woman is not obligated by the time-bound commandments because of those responsibilities. If your kid is sitting there saying, "Hey, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry," you're not going to say, "Hey, I can't right now." You have to take care of those needs. But we interpret and we re-understand them in today's world. And absolutely, women were powerful and women were leaders and had their own voices. And part of the other issue has to do with language. English allows us to be a non-binary language, right? We can go ahead and use, third person and so forth. But when we talk about Hebrew, when we talk about Arabic, any of the other languages, they are gender based. And so sometimes we get caught up in that. It's like, oh, well, this word is masculine, so therefore, and I think we need to kind of break down those barriers as well.
I just want to add to that the personalities we're speaking of, they were real people who lived in real social and historical context, right? There were certain societal norms at the time that may be very different than what we're seeing today. But I would also agree with my colleagues that, what is being taken and what is being shared is often, it's one-sided. We know in the Quran, for example, that the prayer of Asiya was documented in the Quran, that there's a chapter on Maryam, that there's a verse on Fatima. Like, we know all of this, but oftentimes we don't hear of those things. We hear the other stuff. And I think we have to also realize that they lived within a particular time period, and while things have changed, their teachings live on, and we use what we can in our lives today.
Absolutely. So I think we've got time for just one last quick question. And so I'll take this and also give it to all of you, and we'll move forward into a more today context, current events. But what are each of your faith communities doing to combat sexism? Right? What are things that you've seen that have worked well, and what can they continue to do to make sure that we continue to help our women move forward? Not all at once. Rabbi Heidi, do you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. So, first of all, within the liberal Jewish tradition, men and women, egalitarianism, equality, women are rabbis, women are cantors, boys are rabbis, men are rabbis, men are cantors. There's a great story of, a little boy who goes, "Oh, I can be a rabbi too?" It's like, awesome. That's when, things kind of switch. But, it's also, it's about awareness, not only about combating sexism. Yes, absolutely. We are always working for gender equality. We are still working for pay equity, right? That all is extremely important. And so we educate ourselves in that, we do our social justice work in that, we write, and we meet with our Congress people to continue to do that work. I mean, social justice work is an important part of Judaism. But also, it's the awareness too of everyone's identity. You might notice there in my name, so it says Rabbi Heidi Cohen, and then I have my pronouns of she, her, and hers. And, we are in a world, and talk to our teenagers because they can definitely teach us so much more about this as well. But we are not only identified by gender. It's so important to be able to ask somebody, who are you? What are your pronouns? So that we can respectfully acknowledge them and respect them. So that's why, you see in my name tag there, and you'll see, I see it all the time now, but especially with our younger people, and within my community, I'm seeing it as well, of making sure that we're respecting and honoring everybody's identity as to who they are.
Absolutely. Reverend Sisa, how about you?
Sure. Much like Rabbi Heidi, progressive Christianity, you'll find women who are ordained ministers. I spoke last year at it was a Pacific Asian progressive Asian American Christians. And I preached at their closing worship service. And these mothers brought their girls up to me and show them, you can be a pastor too. And that was just amazing to have that, to be able to be kind of a model for them that, yes, you can be a pastor, you can be an ordained minister. The other thing that we're starting to look at in my church is just the language of our liturgy, and how we look at God. Is God always a father? Can God's love be the same as a mother? And so we are starting to look at our literature, or the way we say things, and it's not always he, but maybe we just use more of God, the word God, or the beloved one, the holy one, the protector, the carer. So the way we look at our liturgy also will start to bring a change in how we look at the identity of people and of God and of each other.
So true. And Sister Sakina, how about you?
What I've seen a lot in my community is that, forums similar to this one that not only talk about women today, or talk about rights of women, but also talk about the roles of women in Islamic history. I think that's so important. I mentioned in my talk that there is a huge misconception in Islam that women weren't part of, the wars, women weren't part of the revolutions, women weren't part of any of them. Women weren't standing up, and that's very incorrect. Women were at the forefront of everything. And so I think, seeing positions in leadership, definitely, I've seen that, I've witnessed that, but also just going back and talking about these women, more and more I hear in a Friday sermon or in a Thursday lecture, the whole thing is focused on a woman. And, I really appreciate that. And I think that young girls who are sitting in those sermons, when they can hear that, a woman we're only talking about Lady Fatima, or we're only talking about Lady Maryam, or, it's a really big deal to walk away from that conversation saying, not only have I been listening to this, but everybody in the congregation has been listening, and we'll take this back home.
That is absolutely so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your, insights with us so generously. At this time, I'd like to transition just a little bit over to highlight some organizations. As we honor these three phenomenal figures from history, and they've had so much impact on humanity, in their honor, we would like to highlight 3 charitable organizations doing really important work for humanity that we'd like to share with you. We have a speaker on behalf of each one, and they will tell you about their organization very briefly. So first off, I'd like to welcome Brother Yusuf Ali to tell us about Comfort Aid International. Brother Yusuf?
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. My name is Yusuf Ali. I am the CEO of Comfort Aid International. If I sound jaded, you'll forgive me. I've been flying the last 24 hours, taking in on my own breath and my own burps and everything else that comes with COVID. Comfort Aid International started very informally in the year 1996 when I was in India researching for my first book, and I met a little girl by the name of Sakina Rizvi, and I wanted to help her out, educate her, and it just grew from there. We are now, thank God, everywhere in the world where there is a need, starting from Afghanistan to Yemen to the Rohingyas to Somalia. Our focus is primarily in educating children who don't have that opportunity. And we have already built 54 schools around the world. Our 55th school is under construction right now in Afghanistan. Apart from that, we also like to help out with orphan care because inevitably in areas of conflict, where there are wars, it leaves a lot of orphans around. So we have now approximately, last count is about 820 orphans that we take care of around the world. And by taking care, I mean everything, focusing on their education, and then of course everything that gives them a life of relative comfort in where they are. Sometimes this is difficult in areas like Afghanistan, in Yemen, for example, right now, and for the Rohingyas, of course, that are struggling in scholar in Bangladesh. But we try our best, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far. We run 6 medical clinics in parts of Afghanistan where people had never seen a doctor before when we came in, and this is it's wonderful. It takes us. I'll give you just a small example. When we first started, it took us 18 hours to travel about 100 miles. And these are the places where we build these medical clinics, and they're modern, and women get the most benefit out of this because they can go into a sterile place and have children 24 hours a day, any time of the day. In winter also, when it is snowing and freezing, they can knock at the door and they will be admitted and have a baby in a safe, warm, and sterile area. Our other area of aid is through water well projects. We have, to put it conservatively, water projects all around the world that benefit over 100,000 people. And I mean conservative here. Anywhere that people struggle for clean water, be it in, again, Afghanistan, in Africa, many places of Africa, where children and women have to walk 2, 3, 4 miles just to get themselves a pail of water that they use throughout the day. There are lots of other areas that we help out. I think it would be best, the 3 minutes time allocated to me is rather short for me to go into any details of other areas. But if you go to Comfort Aid, www.comfortaid.org, you'll find a host of projects that we have done around the world. And if you want to see some wonderful photographs, you can go to our Facebook page of Comfort Aid International, where we update all our projects there with photographs. So we've just returned from a trip to Africa and two countries in Africa, and we went to Turkey before that to see if we could help out the Syrian refugees who are there. But unfortunately, that did not work out because the Turkish government is not very willing to help out the Syrians who are living in their country, and they'd rather have them go back.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information and these photographs and experiences. And may God bless you and continue to give you strength and the ability to do this work. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Hasnain Walji to tell us about Code Girls.
Thank you so much, Nazneen, and thank you, the Shia Muslim Council of Southern California and Muslims for Peace for such an inspiring event. Thank you to our eloquent speakers, Reverend Payuyo, Rabbi Cohen, Dr. Dada, for a very insightful conversation, so ably moderated by Nazneen, who reminded me of some memorable interfaith events we did together when I lived in sunny California. So thank you for that. We're delighted to have this opportunity and this acknowledgement from the SMC and appreciate the support given to us. All the more so at this inspiring event, which celebrates women in history who've made a difference. The Code Girls program that we have initiated is indeed a women empowerment project that we do. At the United Global Initiative, of which I am the executive director, our mission is to build or help build stronger communities by helping individuals to develop skills they need to make a living in life. And to that end, UGI has partnered with 2 other organizations in Pakistan, both led by women, very active women in Pakistan, who have come together, and we have created the Code Girls program. Code Girls is a transformative female empowerment initiative that facilitates young women to excel in the field of information technology, as well as help them cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset. I say transformative because this is a free boot camp that enrolls girls from economically challenged households and equips them with coding and essential business skills which can help them in starting or advancing their careers. I call it transformative because we now have over 1,000 girls who have gone through the boot camp. Many are gainfully employed, adding almost 30 to 40% to the family's budget in those areas in Pakistan. It has changed lives, it has changed families. I don't want to labor on. You can go to the website, uniqueglobalinitiative.org, that you see on the screen. In the past 2 years, as I said, we've had the good fortune of onboarding over 1,000 girls, and they are gainfully employed. So once again, we thank you. We thank the SMC, thank the organizers, thank Islam Muslims for Peace organization for putting this fabulous event together. We've learned such a lot. And as the speaker said so eloquently, that truly we need to have these conversations about interfaith at the same time. Interfaith conversation about women, that is a double bonus when you have something that's going on this basis. So once again, stay blessed, stay safe, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walji. It just reminds me of a phrase that I heard once, that when she rises, we all rise. Last but not least, I'd like to invite Brother Zia Sayed to tell us about the World Academy of Development.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I'm sorry, I think the video is not on. I think it's saying the host has to allow the video to come on. Okay, here we go.
Perfect, we can
Okay,
see
assalamu
you.
alaikum again. Great. There are many wonderful US-based nonprofits, 2 of which you've already heard from. So it's a really, really big honor I find to be selected by the SMC to be highlighted in today's event. The World Academy of Development was founded close to 5 years ago. We started this project knowing that we wanted to do something for orphan children, but something truly impactful rather than just so we spent 2 years developing a unique model. This model was based on a very simple concept, but very powerful concept. We said, what if we took an orphan child and developed him into a wealthy philanthropic adult? We felt that if we can give them a world-class education and at the same time condition them to believe in the concept of giving. So we built academies to date. In the second one in Taxila, Pakistan. Both academies started with orphan boys of the age of 12 to 13 years of years. So in addition to the regular secondary school education, we offered 4 key subjects. One was American English. We brought in teachers from abroad to teach English. We had teachers from New York, France, UK teaching English to Southern Iraqi kids. These kids were amazed to be able to interact with blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christian teacher from New York. Just imagine what this does from the perspective of opening up their mind to the rest of the world. Computer science is the second class that we focus on. We believe, just as Brother Walji does with this project, that technology is the future. If we can develop computer engineers, what you've done is you've actually crushed poverty for not just that child, but for their future family and potentially generations to come. Martial arts, we actually build a martial arts studio in the actual facility. We have a black belt Taekwondo teacher that comes in 5 days a week. This helps tremendously from the perspective of motivation, self-discipline, and of course, self-defense. Lastly, character building. This is a subject dedicated to teaching them how to become exemplary citizens through role model figures such as Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Abdul Sattar Idi. We teach them the value of giving. So at the end of the day, the goal is to have these children actually grow up to be wealthy philanthropic adults so that they can actually build academies of their own. So our students rank highest in all of Southern Iraq. We sent our boys in Pakistan laptops, and 2 months after receiving them, the boys were able to create bar charts and pie charts in Microsoft Excel. So we found is the focused learning, focused teaching with the right amount of love given to these children, the results are unbelievable. So I'd just like to pause here for a second. I want to make an announcement, which we have not made yet publicly. This is the first time I'm announcing this. The World Academy of Development is going to be opening a 3rd academy this year, and one's going to be dedicated to just girls. Going to be 30 orphan girls from the age of 10 to 11 living in a new facility. And these girls will be given the same opportunities that were allotted to our boys with the same martial arts, computer science, English, etc., along with their secondary education. So we're super, super excited about it. We are strong advocates of the old adage, you teach a boy, you help a man. If you teach a girl, you help a generation. So now keep in mind, we do all this with no formal fundraisers, no lavish dinners. We solely rely on the help of our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the donors that are individual on our website, worldacademyofdevelopment.org, with $10 a month, $40 a month, $100 a month, whatever you're comfortable with. And that's how we've not just sustained ourselves, but have actually progressed over the past 5 years. So I'd like to just thank the donors. I'd like to thank everyone that prays for us, supports us financially, and most importantly, the Shia Muslim Council for giving us this opportunity and for all of us to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Zia. And that's amazing. Congratulations, and may Allah continue to bless you and allow you to do this good work. I'd like to take this time now to close our event and give my heartfelt thanks to so many different individuals and organizations First and foremost, thank you to all of our speakers. We couldn't have done this without you sharing of your time and your insights so graciously. So thank you so much. Shia Muslim Council and Muslims for Peace, thank you for organizing this event, for inviting us to speak, and for giving us this platform. It's absolutely amazing. And thank you also to the charities that are sharing these real world activities, that take the lessons from the women that we learned about today and are applying them in the real world. In light of that, Shia Muslim Council will be donating $500 to each of these 3 charities to recognize the work that they're doing to support humanity around the world. And we'd encourage all of you to go out there, visit their websites, and donate generously if you can. Additionally, Shia Muslim Council itself, if you enjoyed this program and the other programs that Shia Muslim Council puts on, you can visit their website at www.shiamuslimcouncil.org/donate. And anything that you can share to help them would be greatly appreciated. We'd also very much like to thank the donors that allowed us to make these donations to these very worthy causes. So thank you for your generosity and for your time. Without further ado, I'll close the event and thank you again, and may God bless each and every one of you. Take care and have a lovely day.